This video is brought to you by Miniature Market. Thousands of board games, discounted prices, miniaturemarket.com.
Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. It's time to get to work out in that farm. Because today we're going to be planting some seeds, growing some crops, harvesting those crops in our barns, selling them for money so we can buy more crops, and we're also going to be feeding our animals. Today we're talking about My Happy Farm. This is the Portal Games version that's just coming out right now. It's 2 to 4 players. It plays in about 30 minutes, the box says. More on that later. It is a 2 to 4 player slight Euro game for ages 8 and up for sort of little older kids there. Let's take a look how it plays. I'll see you on the other side. In My Happy Farm, you're going to be planting crops. Those crops are going to be growing. They're going to be harvesting into this nice barn that everybody has their own little player board here. And you'll also be selling and feeding these crops once they're harvested to your animals. And there's 4 different types of animals that everybody has, but you're essentially going to be feeding them the crops that you have harvested, and then they're going to go from sad to happy, and you're going to be getting points, and that's generally what you're doing in the game. So here's what the setup might look like in front of you. You have all your player information here. You have all the group information up here. And you start the game. The one who most recently fed their pet gets to go first, and then turns go clockwise. On your turn, you'll go through 3 different phases in this order. You'll gain crops, crops will grow, and then you'll perform any 2 of these actions. Let's go through this in order. To gain crops, you simply grab the top card from the market and put it in your hand. Now remember, you start with 2, and these are always secret. You can look at them anytime and hold them in your hands, but don't show your opponents. We're going to skip the second phase, which is growing crops, because at the beginning of the game you haven't had anything planted yet in any of the seasons, so we'll come back to this phase later. Now for the available actions, you can do any 2 of these actions. They have to be different, and you can do them in any order. Let's talk about buying crops. When you buy crops, you can buy up to 3 of them. And you can buy any of the ones that you can see here, or you can buy one off the top that you can't see. Whenever you buy any of these, they're just 1 coin each. Don't get confused with the number of coins on the bottom of the cards. We'll talk about that later, which is when you sell these. So for example, I can spend 1 coin to grab this clover and put it in my hand. And when I do that, it gets replaced from the top. Now let's say, okay, I want to buy a beet. I would spend another coin, my only 2 coins that I've started with. And let's just say you could buy up to 3. I bought 2, and I'm done buying crops. I can move on to my next action. Now after you buy crops, you have to make sure that you do not have more than 6. If you have more than 6, you must discard down to 6 at this time. A note about the crop cards. Right now we see 3 clovers. If at any time all 6 cards are the same, regardless of the type of crop, these would all get flushed out into a discard pile and 6 new ones would come out from the draw pile. Also, if this draw pile ever it gets exhausted, you would shuffle it with the discard pile and create a new crop deck just like you see here. Another action you could take is planting crops. Now when you plant crops, you always plant them into the spring of your barn right next to it. And when doing this, you can either plant 1 crop right next to it, or you can plant 2 different crops, or you can plant 3 of the same crops. Those are your 3 options of doing so. So let's just say I did 2 different crops and I planted them in spring. Now because I took 2 different actions already, that would be the end of my turn. It would be the next player's turn. Now let's say it came back to me. Of course, the first phase of my turn, as I talked about before, is you get to grow crops by grabbing one of these crop cards. But the second phase we skipped over, which was crops grow. In this case, what happens is all the crops that are next to it move up to the next season. So these ones were from spring. They couldn't have been harvested here because they haven't grown yet. But now we see that it's moved to summer, which means clovers and carrots can be harvested, but the other 2 can't. If at the beginning of my turn these crops were already here, they would then move up to autumn, where now all 4 of these types can be harvested. If it was the beginning of my turn and there were some crops here in autumn, these would be lost. They would go out, they're bad, and I wouldn't have been able to harvest them in time. So regardless of where these are, they all just move up 1, and obviously you can have different crops into different seasons at the same time. So these would have actually moved here. Now for my actions, one of the actions that I can take is harvest crops. When I harvest the crops, I can take crops from either the summer or the autumn, but not both. So let's say I choose summer because that's all I have. I could choose any or all of the crops here as long as they could fit in my barn. So I want to take both of these. So I'm going to harvest both of these, and what happens is you put these cards right on your barn, and you'll notice that this is 2 cards. You can actually fit 6 cards on your barn. There'd be 2 here, there'd be 2 here, and there'd be 2 here. So if you have more than 6 cards in your barn, you essentially cannot harvest any more. Now another action you can take is feeding animals. Now you'll see the different animal types. We have the pig, the sheep, and the rabbit here. And the bottom is the crops that those animals need to be fed. The ones with question marks, you can use any crop for that. Now I just harvested into my barn a carrot and a clover so I can feed this rabbit. So I will take this card. I will then slot it in between and make the animal larger. And when I do that for the first time, it's very important that now this animal is happy. It's a happy rabbit. The -3 went away and his eyes say I'm happy, and this is going to be worth 3 points at the end of the game. Now you can add multiple ones to the same animal even on the same action as long as you have enough crops to do so, and he will just continue to grow. You can also feed multiple different animals on the same action as long as you have the crops to do so. So from my barn, I just fed these crops to my animal, my rabbit, so these would go in the discard pile. And then this would get refilled by the feeding deck, just like that. Another sheep. Another action you can take is selling crops. If you have crops that you've already harvested that might be in your barn, but you don't want to use them to feed, you can sell them for the coin amount here. This is 5 coins. I would discard this beet and I would collect 5 coins, and you can sell as many as you want in your barn for this action. The last possible action you can take is just take 1 coin from the bank. That's the simple action. At any time, you can pass in 5 single dollars to pull a 5 out for making correct change. Now remember, you're only getting 2 actions per turn, and that's going to the next player's turn. This will continue until somebody triggers the end of the game by flipping over the last feeding card. Everyone else, including the player that did this, will get 1 more last turn, and then we go to final scoring. Everyone would count up their points for their animals. So here I have 4 and 3, which is 7, 3 more, which is 10, and we have this, which is 14. I did not feed my cow and he's sad, so I get -3. That puts me from 14 back to 11. Now for any animal type that you have the longest, so here we have basically including his head and tail, there's 4 cards here. If I had the longest rabbit more than everybody, I'd get +3 points. If I'm at least tied with one other player, nobody gets the +3 points. So in this case, as I said, I didn't get any bonuses, and that would be my score. The one who has the most points is the winner. If it's tied, the one with the most total feeding cards is the winner. And if there's still a tie, the player with the most pets at home wins. There is my happy farm. I was really impressed with this game. I mean, now you look at the cover and it says ages 8 and up, and you kind of expect it to be like this little kid's game. But what I found is there's actually a good amount of depth here for the level of game that it is and for who the target audience is. There's actually a lot of forward thinking as well. You're trying to plan. You're planning which crops do I need to buy, which crops am I just gaining at the beginning of my turns, and what feedings do these animals need, and how am I going to plant this? The key to this is like, man, you can only plant 1 card or two different ones or 3 of the same, and those limitations really change the way you look because things can be harvested only at specific times. So you're looking at the feedings, you're looking at the animals that are available, you're looking at the harvested times, the seasons, you're looking at your hand, and you're trying to plan like almost 2 or 3 moves ahead as to what's going on. It's brilliant for older kids to start getting that forward thinking and some future planning done. This does an amazing job of bringing a fun, light theme to a kids game essentially that parents can like too. I've actually played this with just adults and we all enjoyed it. Granted, we're like, wow, this is much deeper than I thought it was going to take. But it is still sort of that kids game, but I'd say it's, it's a little Euro game for those little kids, but at the same time, it still has a good depth there. Now, my only complaint of the game is that it's a little too short. It ends before you want it to end, especially with like 2 players, let's just say. As soon as that deck empties, it's over. So, unless you're getting something or feeding somebody on the last turn, there's only going to be like 5 of those cards gone. Maybe someone has 3 animals done, maybe you have 2. There's a lot of minus points there. I feel like it should have been a couple more turns longer. As soon as you start to really get into the groove of things, the game ends. I mean, it says 30 minutes. I mean, it takes 10 to 15 minutes tops with 2 players. And with 4 players, it's still not going to be towards that 30 minutes. It's really quick. But with that being said, I still think it's an excellent game. I can recommend it for light, very light, almost like a filler Euro game for adults, or a good deep game for older, that 8 to 10-ish range. Really good things in here. I really like it. I just wish it was a little bit longer. And I also wish that money was worth something at the end, because a lot of times you get to the end, it gets to the end quick, and you're like, oh, I can't do anything. Well, I've got some stuff in my barns. Let's just sell for some money, and maybe I get a point for every 3 coins or something. I just wish there was something at the end other than just the points. And I also felt that because it ended so quickly, sometimes instead of going for the bigger points, which take longer to get, some people can just rush to get the really quick and easy ones done to try to get it over before you can score pretty much any of your animals, maybe 1 or 2 tops, and you get stuck with a bunch of minus points. So I just wish it was a little longer, but maybe for kids this age, they tried to make it short to keep the capture attention. I kind of understand that. I might house rule it when I play with adults to maybe play with, make it a little bit longer if you're playing with less than 4 players, add some of the cards. But overall, for what its intended purpose is, it's an excellent game, and one that I'll still even play with my family or adults, maybe my wife. This is a great gateway Euro game for adults and a good deep level game for older children, and that is my happy farm.
This video was sponsored by Miniature Market's Review Corner. The Review Corner features podcasts, video, and written game reviews by gamers for gamers. Miniature Market, the online gaming superstore. Thousands of board games, discounted prices. Check them out at miniaturemarket.com.